Hello, hello. Welcome once again to another edition of Quoth Raven, the Sprite Raven Friday night TV and movie talk. Tonight's topic is the 1959 film The Tingler, starring Vincent Price. We are having a little bit of weather problems around here, so the show might get caused to be buffered or cut off. I don't know. We'll try and stay on the air as fluidly as possible. And okay, we were going to have a number of guests tonight, but unfortunately, John Norris had to bow out at the last minute. He had something else come up, and I haven't heard back from one of my other guests. So I'm one person only with me, and that's fine because that person is Monster Fan. Kaiju forever.
Hey Raven, good to see you again.
Hey,
Nice to see your shining black wings. Um, and good evening to all the listeners out there.
okay. It's been a crazy week. So, how recently did you watch the movie?
I watched it twice this week.
Okay, so you watched it twice. Okay.
Tuesday and today.
Okay. Yeah, I watched it last night and early this morning while I was writing up the graphics and getting everything ready. So, let's just go ahead and get into it, I guess. We got North Free in the house. Don't panic, but everybody scream. And hail to both of us. Hail back.
Hey North Free.
So let's see what we've got. The Tingler, 1959, directed by William Castle, with a screenplay by Rob White, produced by William Castle, starring Vincent Price, Judith Evelyn, Daryl Hickman, Patricia Cutts, Pamela Lincoln, and Philip Coolidge as the credited cast. There were, of course, several others as additional background people. Production company was William Castle Productions, distributed by Columbia Pictures with a runtime of an hour and 22 minutes. It was originally released on July 29, 1959. The budget was $400,000 for the filming of the movie, with estimates up to $1 million, which includes all the gimmicks that Castle employed at the theaters, which we'll talk about as we get into the discussion of the film. The total box office unofficially that the film received was $2 million. Now, that seems like a kind of like a box office bust, but keep in mind that ticket prices back in 1959 were only 70 cents a ticket. So they did get some people to see this film. Alrighty. What it's about, the plot. A medical pathologist, Dr. Warren Chapin, played by Vincent Price, discovers the tingling of the spine during states of extreme fear is due to the growth of a parasitic creature that every human being seems to have, called a tingler, which is attached to the human spine. It curls up, feeds, and grows stronger when its host is afraid, effectively crushing the person's spine if curled up or grown up long enough. The host can weaken the creature and stop its curling around the spine by screaming. Yes, this sounds absurd, and it is, but keep in mind that this is the 50s when it was filmed. Movie theater owner Oliver Higgins, played by Philip Coolidge, who shows exclusively silent films, is an acquaintance of Dr. Chapin. Apparently, someone he knew, a relative, was brought to the morgue, and he had to identify the body at the beginning of the film. So Dr. Chapin takes him to the theater where he works, and there they meet Higgins' wife, Martha, played by Judith Evelyn, who is a deaf and mute and therefore cannot scream. There's a conversation between Chapin and Higgins about the Tingler and stuff, and it kind of gives Coolidge an idea, but we're not really sure what. We find out soon after that she goes to bed, but she wakes up and finds weird seeming supernatural events occurring in her bedroom and bathroom, including a person with an axe throwing an axe at her, and a tub full of blood and a hand rising up out of the tub that's made out of blood, and she dies of fright from it. Now, Higgins takes the body of his wife to Chapin, and Chapin discovers that the Tingler is there in the woman's body as he does the autopsy on it, and he removes it for experimentation. After they contain the Tingler and return to Higgins' house, it is revealed that Higgins is the murderer, and that he frightened his wife to death, knowing that she couldn't scream because she was mute. However, the centipede-like creature eventually breaks free from the container that holds it and gets released into Higgins' theater. The Tingler latches onto a woman's leg, and she screams until it releases its grip, and Chapin tries to take control of the situation by shutting off the lights and telling everyone in the theater to scream. The Tingler flees the showing room, and they resume the movie that's being played and go to the projection room, where the Tingler is attacking the person showing the film, and they recapture it. Guessing that the only way to neutralize the Tingler is to reinsert it inside Martha's body, Chapin does so. Of course, Chapin tells Higgins, who has admitted his guilt to Chapin, that he must just turn himself in, because he's going to tell him the cops what's going to happen, and he leaves. Chapin is left alone in the room, and as if by the same supernatural forces that frightened his wife, the door slams shut and locks itself. The window closes, echoing just what happened to the wife, and the body of the wife rises up from its prone position and turns and stares at her husband. Of course, not saying anything, because even if she's deaf mute, she can't speak anyway. This freaks out Chapin, and he's also unable to scream. The screen fades to black, and Dr. Chapin's voice says, "Ladies and gentlemen, just a word of warning. If any of you are not convinced that you have a Tingler of your own, the next time you are frightened in the dark, don't scream." Now, there are other subplots going on in this film. There are three couples: the Higgins couple, Dr. Chapin and his cheating wife, Isabel, and Dave Morris, who is Chapin's assistant, and his partner, Lucy Stevens, who is Isabel's younger sister. Each couple is basically dealing with dysfunctional, failed or failing marriages, or in the case of Morris and Stevens, they're freshly dating, and they're not sure if the trust is there. Higgins has killed his wife basically to get out of the marriage and to get rid of the theater, which is a failing business, which was a commentary on the movie industry and drive-in industry at the time, as many locales were suffering because there just wasn't enough money being charged to see movies. Again, tickets were only 70 cents in 1959. There is a scene where Higgins bemoans his life to Chapin. And it also doesn't help that Martha is portrayed as deaf, as mute, because this dehumanizes her to some extent. But there's also a metaphor for the era of the status quo of what was expected of married women in that time frame. In other words, to be obedient, subservient, seen, and not heard. But of course, as with any marriage, you can't have a one-sided situation without communications, or it will break down, which is partly what led Higgins to his actions. The Chapin marriage is another broken relationship. The good doctor is so wrapped up in his work that his wife goes out philandering. Yes, I know this is a term that's defined as a man who seeks out casual sexual relationships with women, but since there isn't a colloquial term for a woman who does it with men, we're just going to use it as a generalized term. Deal with it. The other third plot issue was with the daughter, or not the younger sister. The older sister, Dr. Chapin's wife, holds the family money and is withholding her sister's half of the inheritance and won't let her marry her boyfriend because the boyfriend is his lab assistant. and she thinks that he's never going to amount to anything because he didn't. The bathtub scene in color was the best part. We'll figure that out. We'll talk about the bathtub scene in a little bit. But there we go. Did I miss anything on the description?
The only thing that pops out at me is the LSD scene.
Thank you. I forgot about that. There is a scene, of course, where Chapin, Price's character, experiments with LSD to try and simulate fear sensations because he can't make himself feel fear for some reason. And he takes that, and they do, again, the sort of similar situation where is it supernatural or is he just thinking supernatural? He opens up the window, but as far as he knows and thinks in his head, the window is bolted shut, and he thinks the walls are closing in on him, and he screams, the walls, the walls. What am I going to do? And he blacks out from, or no, he doesn't black out. He screams because he can't take it anymore. But I guess he blacks out a little bit too, because if I remember correctly, the lab assistant does help him recover afterwards. So yeah, there's that as well. Okay. What do you think about the thematic structure of the film with the three relationships?
Well, I think it's at least noteworthy because if you consider that in the late 50s, at that time, marital relationships were all supposed to be like the couple on Leave It to Beaver.
Mm-hmm.
And to find all three couples in this story with not just dysfunctional relationships, but two of them extremely dysfunctional relationships. Right. One which is so dysfunctional that it pours onto the third couple, which probably wouldn't be dysfunctional if it didn't have to deal with the robbing senior sister.
Right.
But because the assistant doesn't have enough money to marry the girl,
mm-hmm.
So if they had that money, they could do something. So I think the attempt of the doctor's wife to kill him,
mm-hmm.
And the actual killing of the wife by the theater owner. I mean, these are extreme dysfunction. I mean, the kind we now accept as the norm in America, probably.
Yeah,
but at that time, was considered quite strange. And I don't know what Rob White, the screenwriter's intent was, but it's pretty worth noting, I thought.
Yes, definitely. Yeah, I also forgot to mention the fact that the wife tried to kill him there in the plot, which is another plot hole, because after the attempt fails, because the younger sister walks in and finds a doctor with the Tingler strangling him, and she screams and it knocks the Tingler out, she leaves the house and runs away more or less, and presumably takes all the family fortune with her, and we don't know anything about what happens with her afterwards. So that was one of the major plot holes.
Yeah, so it's good to note that for those two couples, the dysfunction is going to continue beyond the end of this film.
Yes. Now, there are some interesting fun facts about this film. The movie only played in certain cities in the U.S. when it was first run: Detroit, Boston, New York, Philadelphia, Chicago, San Francisco, and Los Angeles in theaters, while the majority of the rest of the country could only see it in drive-in theaters where the movies actually altered to suit the outdoor environment. As you know, the climactic sequence is taking place in the theater. Well, instead of you're not in a theater when you're at the drive-in. So they had to do something else. And they show you a different alternate version of the film on those. And another thing that we notice is when you watch the film on Tubi, there's other things that go on that are part of the performance of the film that we don't get to see in the movie itself. We'll get to that in a minute. Here's where the Tingler is strangling Vincent Price, and that necktie just does not look all that fashionable. Pop Culture Avenger asks, is it possible that Chapin slipped Ollie an LSD-laden Mickey to cause hallucinations of his wife? I don't think so. I didn't see any point in the scene where that would have done that. And you've got to remember earlier in the film when he first brought the body to her, the body was rising up on its own because the Tingler was making it rise. So I think that's just a continuation of what was going on before. What makes it interesting, though, is that if the Tingler does that, anybody who dies of fear is like that, they're like a zombie afterwards. And that could have been a whole new movie where they all got, if you got scared to death, you die, and then you rise up again with the Tingler controlling your body. But you can't talk or speak or anything because the Tingler doesn't know human language. That would have been an interesting continuation from the story, but they didn't do it, of course. Anyway, you mentioned the LSD scene. This was the first time in film history where LSD was actually referred to and referenced as to the effects visually in film or television. I don't know how accurate the description was, but it was Price's performance was interesting, to say the least, with that. Never having taken the drug because I have low drug tolerances and I wouldn't want to even risk it. A bad trip would be really bad. Because even though you supposedly you can't die from it, it can leave long-term psychological damage, apparently. So that was quite an interesting scene. Of course, like I said, this film cost up to $1 million in production costs, over $600,000 beyond the $400,000 filming. And this is because of his known movie gimmicks. The Tingler featured one of his best, Percepto. Previously, he had offered a $1,000 life insurance policy against death by fright for his film Macabre in 1958. And then he had a skeleton flying above the audience's heads in the auditorium during the film The House on Haunted Hill from 1959, which came out about 6 months before Tingler, and Vincent Price was also in that film. But in this film, Castle had the theater set up with random seats where there was an electric buzzer that you could feel off the back of your spine through the bottom of the seat. He also would hire local actors to play out a scene within the theater itself when the Tingler was running rampant in the theater, and then would have Chapin react to the scene in the audience. A nurse would faint from fear, or a woman would faint from fear, rather, and there would be the doctors and nurses who just happened to be in the audience watching the film, and they would just so happen to be able to get an ambulance right away to the theater, and they would collect this fainted person and roll them out on a gurney to the ambulance and drive off, while the film would then go on and continue. And what we got to see was basically a cut from point A to point B without that part really presented to the audience. Two of the actors, the young couple, Daryl Hickman and Pamela Lincoln, were actually engaged at the time of filming. They were a real-life couple. And in fact, Castle convinced Hickman to play his role for the film for free to help promote Lincoln. Talk about a smooth talker. I got a whole person acting a role for free. That's pretty interesting. You think about it. The couple would later marry after the film was completed. They had 2 kids, and they would later get divorced after 23 years of marriage. Maybe they got fed up with each other and said, well, rather than kill each other, we'll just get a divorce. Another fun fact, the banter between Price and Cutts, Chapin and the woman who's playing his wife, Isabel, is over 50% ad-libbed on the spot between the two, which is quite interesting when you think about how cutting the barbs are between the two performers. Now, the other thing is the famous bloody bathtub scene with the bright red flowing in the black and white film. Now, how did they do this? Well, they built a set in shades of black and white so that would photograph on color film as if it were being shot on black and white stock. Then, of course, the red part would be legitimate color red. And this is basically ketchup and food coloring in the tub. And so this would make the blood stand out and cause that special effect. The color footage had to be manually spliced into the black and white release prints. So that was quite an interesting technique. And that's one of the reasons why, another reason why the film, even though it did decent box office, didn't do much better because it cost more money to do all that manual hand cutting. So they didn't make as many prints to be released to the public. Now, the Tingler is actually a real creature. It's an oversized, large-scale model of a velvet worm, also known as a peripatus. It has its own phylum, Anacoprah, and is about halfway between an earthworm and an arthropod. Now, the actual real creature is, of course, nowhere as large as the freaking lobster-sized monstrosity that they made for the movie. But as you can see from the picture here, the real thing is pretty darn creepy too, and it's actually more realistic, in my opinion. Because that I could see living inside you and being wrapped around your spine. This big honking thing, I don't believe. I mean, it's as big as your forearm. It's attached to your spine. It feeds on and crushes your spine. I'm thinking the guy from Aliens saying, game over, man, game over. Face huggers, no. But yeah, that's kind of the thing. But if you got this thing, this small one, that could legitimately live inside you like a parasite at a baby larva type size near your spine, and then grow into that and still crush your spine and hurt and paralyze you. Legit, that's scary. So if they ever remake this film, that's the size I would make it myself. I don't know. What do you think about that, Monster Fan?
Well, I think, yeah, at first it probably should be that small. And then somehow it slips inside, and then it grows, I guess. And
Yeah.
then when they remove it surgically, it's back to being big again.
Yeah, maybe.
I don't know. That's what I would do.
Yeah, okay. That's fair. All righty. Now, what did I really think about this film? I think if Vincent Price ever made a film that's perfect for Mystery Science Theater 3000 parodying, this is probably the prize winner. There's so many characters breaking law in this movie, it's ridiculous. Murder, an attempted fake murder in the name of science. Because remember, part of the reason that the wife tries to kill Chapin is because Chapin fake shoots her with a blank and frightens her, and then takes the X-rays to show the Tingler on her spine. So it's like there's 3 murders here basically going on. A pathologist who allows a dead body that was brought to his personal lab out of his care instead of properly contacting the authorities, which would make him liable for anything that happens. The sake of all this stuff that's going on for sake of doing dumb shit to further the plot. The attempted murderess, that's again Chapin's estranged wife, who drugs him with enough LSD with alcohol to seriously screw him up. Although again, not kill him necessarily, just enough to make him effectively passed out so the Tingler could strangle him to death. Like I said, she flees after her sister catches the Tingler strangling him, and presumably with all the younger sister's share of their family trust. That bothers me. And the ending, like you say, with his Ollie not being able to do Scream, and it fades to black. That's a little bit silly as well, but it does work for what it's supposed to do. I think Price does an exceptional job with what he's given, even if his character's choices of actions leave something to be desired. I think that's more issues with the script rather than his performance. Judith Evelyn, who plays the deaf mute Martha, did a really nice job in her role. She had to learn and use sign language in the role. And again, like I said, part of the problem with this film, watching it on Tubi instead of in a theater with that kind of with the extra gimmicks, is that you don't get the actual live audience and live theatrics that Castle brought into the film. And I think that makes the ending of the film fall just a little bit flat, because you aren't really experiencing what you're supposed to be. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I would say so.
Okay. But given the era in which this is filmed, given what Castle was doing when it was originally coming out in context of playing in theaters and in the drive-ins, I do think the film was actually quite clever. This film was not rated originally, but would probably receive a PG-13 or TV-14 level rating today, given the multiple murder attempts and the darker nature of the broken relationships. I give it 3 stars for Price's performance. He does a really nice job in the film, and he carries the film. But if it was anybody else but Price, it'd probably get about a 1.5 to 2. What do you think?
Well, I would say that I don't disagree with you. I think that Price's performance here is, well, let me put it this way. He's often criticized for chewing the scenery.
Mm-hmm.
He really doesn't do that here, even though the story is so strange.
Right.
And it's certainly worthy of a good chew, but he's actually pretty like normal and calm and dealing with, I mean, the LSD scene with the walls, maybe he goes a little over the top, maybe not. After all, he took a double dose. Who knows? Mm-hmm. But I think because of Price's performance, I would give this 3 stars.
Okay. Pop Culture says he burst out laughing when Chapin tells Ollie to call the police and funeral home to come pick up his wife, and he nonchalantly says, "I'll just take her home." Yeah, I mean, that just wouldn't. First off, why is he telling Ollie to call the police and funeral home? That's his job as a pathologist and coroner. He's it's automatically his responsibility to keep that body in his custody until authorities have been, properly contacted and identified and everything. So that was just a really clunky scene, to say the least. North Free says his wife was sadistic, and he never found out about her attempting to murder him with a monster. Oh no, he knew. That was pretty much a given. I think the thing that's weird about the Dr. Chapin and his wife is that he is so pee-whipped that he's like, yeah, I deserve it because I don't take care of her. I don't do what I'm supposed to do as a man, type thing. It's okay that she goes out messing around with other women, other guys. It's okay that she, because I've never there for her anyway. I'm always in my lab, type thing. But once this experiment's done and I've got time for her, everything will be okay. Then that was kind of that
was pretty bizarre.
Yeah.
I mean, but I know there are men today that feel the same way because they are, as you say.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The schmuck carrying his dead wife was like Weekend at Bernie's. Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. But it was something else though. I don't know. It was interesting. I thought it was funny that the Tingler was able to break out of the box on its own the way it did. And yet, like Pop says, if the Tingler can crush your spine, it should be able to snap Shaken's neck when it was choking him. Well, technically, it's a different type of situation because it's just the tensils at the top of the mouth area that's strangling him. Whereas when it's on your spine, it's got the whole body and the whole thing wrapped around. So I think it's the whole body crushing type thing. But again, I think it's an interesting point that, it should have been very easily have killed him. But, who knows what it was trying to do or not do. Was it really trying to strangle him, or was it just trying to wake him up to say, hey, I'm here? We don't really know what the psychology of the creature is, because it's alien to us, technically. It's an animal. We don't really know what it's thinking or what its purpose outside of the body of a human being is, really. I don't think it knows. It just wants to get back into a body. So he says he gives it a 3.5 because it was sort of original.
Oh yeah, it is. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think again, I think it would have been a lot better. I would have given it higher if I could see the whole thing in the context of how Castle envisioned it with the performances in the audience and everything. I really do think that would change the viewing experience. So, yes, the people screaming at the very beginning was terrible. I had it on, and my cat was sleeping at my feet, and the poor thing just freaked out. We heard that. I had turned the volume down from like 50 to 20 because it's. I mean. He was laying here on the floor next to me, and he came up to about here off the floor. I'm like, that's probably a good 2.5, 3 feet off the floor. It freaked him out. But it goes, when you have people screaming when you're sound asleep, that is going to do that to you, I guess. So, but yeah, it was an interesting film. Whoops, there we go. Yeah, now you're getting in the dark.
Sorry, the sun's going down.
Yeah, I know. That's cool.
So a couple extra points I wanted to bring up.
Absolutely.
If you got time.
We got more than enough time.
You talked well about the scene with the blood and the red and the color.
Mm-hmm.
And I just wanted to point out that for a low budget film, that's a pretty unusual effect. It was done to great effect much earlier in film history in The Picture of Dorian Gray,
mm-hmm.
Which we should review sometime, where when they discover the portrait has been changing while Dorian has not.
Right.
It's a brilliant. It goes to color just for that scene in
right.
a way that really does kind of shock you even now, 70 years later. So So it's a good effect. And the other thing I wanted to say was, and I know that I'm in the minority on this, but I really think William Castle is an underrated director and producer.
Um,
Yes, he did dozens of lower budget movies like this one. Uh, like you said, House on Haunted Hill, which I think is a much better movie,
mhm,
and it also has a theme of anger and hatred between a married couple.
mhm.
Came out first, even though I guess the Tingler was filmed first. So, um, but and everybody in Hollywood for decades mocked him and everything. Although he actually directed the Whistler pictures for Columbia back in the 1940s, and most of them are very good. They were kind of based on the Whistler radio program on the West Coast.
Mhm.
And Richard Dix starred in 6 of the 7 or 7 of the 8. I forget how many there were. And
Mhm.
Castle directed most of those. And they are definitely above average B film noir.
Mhm.
And most of them are really fun to watch. And they're only like an hour and 5 minutes. So I recommend them. But I wanted to say, at the end of his career,
Mhm.
William Castle had the last laugh. Why? Because he produced Rosemary's Baby and he made millions on it. And he was so happy. And you can read in the horror history books about this. Where he was so happy in the last years of his life
Yeah.
because he made so much money on a major motion picture like Rosemary's Baby.
Yeah.
And it was the start with The Exorcist of the
Mhm.
horror boom, which has yet to stop after 50 years.
Yeah.
So
Mhm.
he had the last laugh, and I'm always happy when someone who's kind of considered a dork has the last laugh on the losers around him. So God bless William Castle.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying, but I don't know. I mean, I think a lot of people have come to appreciate him. I mean, they might call him the poor man's Alfred Hitchcock, but they kind of look at him as in that same vein as Alfred Hitchcock.
Yeah.
And I think that I don't think people really discredit him. They did at the time. I'll
At the
agree with you.
time at the time they did. You're probably right that nowadays he's really has gotten a revaluation. Uh, yeah, I mean, after all, he did a psycho like movie, wasn't it Berserk with what's her name?
I'm not sure. I'd have to do a little more research on Castle, but um,
He's well worth researching, and he
yeah,
wrote an autobiography. I'm going to scare the pants off America. It's well
yes.
worth a read.
And Northfried disagrees with us. He only gives it 2.5 stars, 2 stars for Price, and half a star for the movie theater interaction. It's corny but fun, but he thinks the movie was bad. There's no good supporting cast, and he thinks that the writer was on acid. Man,
Well,
he's
one of the
grumpy.
questions I have, I have never taken the drug. Like you, I'm on too many drugs as it is, medical drugs.
Yes.
Um, I wonder I wonder if Price ever tried it in order to see what it was like for his scenes. I don't know. I don't know if there's any record of that.
I
Um,
didn't find anything like that, but I wouldn't. You know, he was something of a method actor, so maybe.
yeah.
Pop says, "Can you imagine in today's world if they did that gimmick in the theater and went off in people's chairs? They would be offended."
Possibly.
Yeah, Northfree's like, "Yeah, it'd be considered sexual harassment from the Karens." I don't know about that, but it's interesting. I mean, if you know that's what it is going in, um, I don't know why you'd be offended by it. Be more offended. Hey, my seat didn't get it because not every seat got it in the theater. Only certain ones did.
Right.
So it'd be like, I didn't get it. I'm offended. Well, I got mine. I'm offended.
That's racist.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, no, no. Only the black people can feel it. Make sure. No, you sit there. You sit there.
Yeah. Right. Number the tickets so you know that they're going to be the one.
Right. Yeah, that would be something else. Raven wearing the Phantasm Club shirt. Yeah. And it's one of the few things one of the few CG books I've backed, and it kind of plays into the Bullet Club thing from wrestling and stuff. So I was like, okay, it didn't cost me as much as a Bullet Club shirt would cost. So I tried that one. Yeah, Price on acid, very possible.
I'm not saying he did. I don't know, but I'd be curious to know
Yeah.
how he prepared for that scene.
Yeah.
Did someone who had taken it tell him? It wasn't very accessible, I don't think, at that time, as much as it became later.
Yeah. I wish they still had gimmicks like that at the theater. Well, the truth on that is the scene where Ollie is talking about how much of a pain in the butt it is to clean up after each one and do all the cleaning and take care of the theater. Nobody would really want to do that today and have to set up a theater like that. It would just bother, they just wouldn't be bothered with it, I don't think. I know quite a few people who own theaters, and they make the same complaints to this day about different things that go on. Like, you go to the comic movies and they'll give you a poster, or they'll give you a free comic or something. Sometimes they'll have events with local comic shops and stuff. And they'll be like, yeah, the comics are left on the floor, and there's popcorn and soda everywhere, and the paper's stuck to the damn carpet, and I got to clean it up. And so they don't want it. So I can't imagine that they'd really want to do anything like that these days.
Yeah.
No, I do not mean the Gun Club. I mean the Bullet Club from New Japan Pro Wrestling. And yes, I am into wrestling, or I have been into wrestling in the past. But the Gun Club, I do know who you're talking about, Billy Gunn and his sons over on AEW, and I'm not into them. Used to be able to purchase movie programs, no more. That's a lot of expense for printing up a movie program for each film to buy. Unfortunately, theaters are dying, transitioning to online society. Yeah, I guess that's true. I don't know. I only go to, like, when my local comic shop has free tickets for me. It's the only time I go to a movie theater anymore. And it's not really that it's free. I do have to earn my free ticket. I have to do like a store appearance type of thing at the theater and do a poster or bring stuff that's related to the movie, like sketch cards or something, and sell them before the show. So I can't complain. I mean, I make money. I get to see the movie for free. I have nothing to complain about. That's why when you see me do reviews of Marvel or DC films, and well, damn, he hates Marvel and DC comics, but he does stuff on the films. I'm getting paid. What have I got to complain about? It's like, I'd have to be a real jerk to bitch about the film when I got paid to see it. So, alrighty, man. We're pretty much done because Monster Fan is in the dark. And I guess it's time you better scream.
More than usual. More than usual, I'm in the dark.
But
I'll have to put a lamp. It's starting to get darker earlier, so next time I'll have to put a lamp on.
Yeah, okay. But anyway, all the mom and pop theaters gone. No, they're not. There's 3 of them right here in Columbia. So, it's now drive-ins are harder to come by, but there are smaller theaters.
We've got 2 up where I am here.
So
one is only about 25 minutes away. The other's about double that.
Okay. Yep. Already then.
They do Halloween shows. So
Yeah. Well, I don't remember. Last time I went to the smaller theater was when I went to see Colossal. I don't know if you guys remember that film with Anne Hathaway.
I have the Blu-ray. Yeah.
Okay, so that was I got to go see that there, but that's that. And he says, well, you're up in Massachusetts, Boston, isn't he? Where is Pop at?
Hell, Connecticut.
Connecticut. Okay. All right. Well, I don't know. Maybe it's just things go.
I believe there are no drive-ins left in Connecticut.
Okay.
Although when we were boys, there was one right up the road.
We haven't.
We used to go watch the Disney movies.
Yeah. I haven't decided on the next movie. I'll let you guys know on Monday what the next movie is. But it'll be on Tubi, so don't worry. It might not even be a movie. It might be something else. It might be a TV show, or it might be maybe not a movie, but a theatrical biography type thing. Because I think there was something about Chris Claremont that was like an hour and a half. I might look at. I don't know. We'll see. But anyway, that's all for now. I want to thank my guest host, Monster Fan, for guesting in the dark.
Thanks for having me on, Raven. It's always a fun time. Thank you.
And if you liked this episode, or you think others might, please hit the like, share, and subscribe buttons to continue to get content from my channel. Raven thanks you, as always, for your support. If you want to reach out to me on social media, Facebook, Lewis.BrightRaven, at Twitter at LewisBrightRave2. You can find my artwork on deviantart.com/BrightRaven. You've been watching Quoth the Raven, Lewis Brightraven, exclusively on YouTube. If you have questions, comments, you want to make suggestions about films or comics I should review. Yes, I did see your Captain Kronos suggestion. I don't know if that's on Tubi or not, but I'll look for it. Anyway, Quoth the Raven LBR72 at gmail.com is the address to reach out to me at. And if I don't get back to you within a day or two, try Lewis Brightraven at yahoo.com. That's all for this episode. I'll see you guys on Monday. Have a good one. Have a safe weekend.